Thank you. Chairwoman Cantwell.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Baldwin and Ranking Member Sullivan for holding this important subcommittee hearing, and thank you, Dr. Spinrad and Ramahan for being here. Very much appreciate the opportunity. I want to say to my colleague from Alaska, I certainly want a holistic approach to our salmon and making sure that we have the appropriate science and recovery methods. And one of the reasons why I fought so hard to stop the Pebble Mine, which would have been built on the largest sockeye run of salmon in the world, was because we definitely get the connectivity between Alaska and the state of Washington. But my colleague's point is correct. We have to invest in all sorts of activities to make sure that we are robust in our approach. I do want to talk, Dr. Spinrad, about NOAA and the distribution of hatchery funds. You know, one of the issues I think is the Inflation Reduction Act really was a shot in the arm, in my opinion, to where we are with our hatcheries, but it's only the beginning. And so I think we really need an established permanent program for infrastructure on our hatcheries to ensure the long-term sustainable management investment will continue. And I understand that NOAA is consulting with tribes on this, but I want to get your feedback on how we make this a long-term investment and what we need to continue to do.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Cantwell, for that question, and appreciate the dialogue with you and your staff throughout this. I want to be very candid and upfront with respect to the tribal component on IRA, and as I stated a little earlier in my testimony here, we can do better. And in fact, I think at the end of the game, the fact that we now have within IRA $390 million, or 15% of the resources going to tribal activities, not just with respect to hatcheries, and of course the largest federal investment in hatcheries restoration we've ever seen, but also in some of the habitat restoration capacity building work as well. Because we have begun this as a result of the consultations, and I might add the listening sessions, 5 of which we conducted during June, we have a much more active and interactive dialogue with the tribes. And I think I want to take your question under advisement because I want to see what comes out of these listening sessions, what comes out of the proposed efforts associated with the hatchery repairs and maintenance, and be able to come back to you and say, based on that investment, based on the plans, based on what we're hearing from the tribes, this is the sort of sustainable long-term effort that we need. And that's something that I'll take as a get back, but until we have that further interaction, and oh, by the way, now that we're working with the Bureau of Indian Affairs also on this, I'd like to get their perspective on how to build this as a sustainable effort.
I'm going to say something that's going to kind of shock people. I need to understand that the Biden administration understands tribal consultation. We in the West understand it, but we're spending an enormous amount of time trying to make sure this administration understands it as well. So I hope that it doesn't take more listening sessions because we've already forced Commerce to have many listening sessions. And, you know, I would say that, as you said, there's more work to be done there. And I don't understand. I don't know if it's like some historical perspective that people are missing. I don't know what it is, but we got to do better. So will you commit to a permanent hatchery infrastructure program? Do you think that's wise?
At this point, I want to get more information about what a permanent hatchery infrastructure program might look like, and I don't have that information, but I will commit to getting back to you with a perspective on that once we're better informed.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How important do you think hatcheries are to our efforts in sustaining salmon?
As an Oregonian, I think they're very important.
Okay, so why wouldn't we want to make sure that we have a well-managed program from your viewpoint to whoever's next in line to take over in a new administration? I think this is what we're looking for, the standardization of what we already know. I joined my colleague on the stock assessment. I mean, that was another big priority for us, is making sure there were resources there for stock assessment. Why? This isn't, you know, a game of like 20 questions when we come here to whoever the administrator is. It is about what do we know today about the science and what do we need to do to move forward. And so I personally think a NOAA Organic Act gets you that. It gets you standardized programs with oversight and real answers as to the progress that we're making. So here, I believe in a permanent and specific stock assessment, and I certainly believe in a hatchery program as well. So keep me posted on the, coming back to us on tribal consultation. And if I could, Rear Admiral Han, ask you about the Coast Guard Authorization Act was signed into law in December, authorized 6 Hurricane Hunter aircraft. These planes are needed to replace the P-3s, which will be at the end of their service of life in 2030. The omnibus provided NOAA with $320 million in a contract to acquire new fleet of Hurricane Hunter aircraft. I understand that NOAA has entered into a contract for only 1 plane. With only 1 aircraft, NOAA will have fewer resources in 2030 than they do today. And as we can see, these are really important weather information tools for us. They reach some of the most intense levels of 4 and 5, and this is why we need this information. So what is holding us up in acquiring these new aircraft?
Chair Cantwell, thank you for the question and thank you for the support for the recapitalization. As you mentioned, there's an authorization for 6 aircraft, and our aircraft recapitalization plan cites the operational requirement for 4 aircraft. So we've been aggressively working towards those contracts to ensure that we have the capabilities online in 2030 when the P3s need to go offline. So as you mentioned, we're working towards awarding a contract. We'll award a pre-production contract in the next month. So that will be 1 aircraft with an option for at least 3 more aircraft, and a production contract in early 2024, fiscal year 24, for the full production contract. So working with the manufacturer Lockheed Martin, that spaces us in their production schedule to ensure we can get through the building of the aircraft, the extensive modifications, instrumentation that we do to collect that data, and have at least 2 of the aircraft online and operating by 2030 when the P3s go offline.
So you're saying what's holding us up is prototyping?
I would say at this point, we're working to spend the funds that we have, the appropriated funds that we have, and working with the manufacturer within their production schedule and all the orders we have to make sure that we are in their plans, we're in their orders, so that it's a 6-year process to build and modify the aircraft. And we're making sure that we're in their production schedules with the funds that we have appropriated to get those aircraft delivered. And we look forward to continuing work with Congress and the administration to fully execute the aircraft and the aircraft recapitalization plan.
Is it true there are only 4 qualified G4 pilots currently in the NOAA Corp?
I believe we have 6 right now that are fully qualified, but you do make a very good point. NOAA Corps staffing is critical. The only way that we're meeting tasking right now is to have them sign high time waivers, which means if they fly more than 120 hours in 30 days, they have to ask for and be approved by a flight surgeon to fly more than 120 hours. That's a lot of hours and extreme flying, as you're well familiar with, and it's not just important for hurricanes, it's critically important for atmospheric rivers. So we are working to increase the recruitment of the NOAA Corps, specifically pilots. We've instituted a couple new things in the next officer class, which swears in today and starts at the Coast Guard Academy on Monday. 8 of those officer candidates will go to aviation upon completion at the Coast Guard Academy in January, which is our next class of officer candidates at Coast Guard Academy. For the first time ever, I directed an aviation board and a mariner board. Within that aviation board, the selections are going on right now, but we have many qualified pilots with all of their pilot license, which means immediately upon completion of training at the Coast Guard Academy, they will go to the Aviation Operations Center and start flying. So we're taking some pretty radical measures to make sure we can get the pilots on board. And to your point, it takes years of training to get to be a qualified hurricane aircraft commander.
How many years do you think?
If someone comes in with experience, they have all their license and experience, probably the quickest we can get them in there is 3 to 4 years to be a qualified hurricane aircraft commander. It depends largely on the hurricane activity. You have to have a minimum number of flights into the environment, into the hurricane to get your qualification. But with bringing in people with their license and flight experience, that allows us to expedite the process up to 4 to 5 years.
Is OMB blocking the contract for more than 1 plane?
At this point, we're working with them, with the administration, on the funds that you appropriated. Thank you very much, to make sure we spend them as efficiently as possible to meet that operational demand in 2030.
Well, we're definitely going to need the information in the pilot, so thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to submit an opening statement for the record, but very much appreciate your leadership here and helping us continue to focus on making sure our fisheries and our oceans policy continue to work well. Thank you.